this is your host, Julia Napini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. We are here today for a climb episode with a clinician that I recently met at a retreat that we were both on together in Charleston, South Carolina with Laura Long. Welcome, Danielle Peters, to the show. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. It's going to be fun.
You and me both. So if you could introduce yourself to the audience, tell us about you.
So my name is Danielle Peters, and I'm a MFT in California. I have a private practice working with parents of neurodivergent kids, and I do one-on-one and group therapy through my private practice. And then I also have a copywriting/blog writing business for other therapists.
I'm really excited to delve into all of this. So tell us about your career prior to private practice and copywriting. What did you do before you started your business?
So immediately before I started my business, I worked with Talkspace and BetterHelp. Basically, I was a brand new mom, and I was looking for something to keep my brain active, but I wasn't ready to be going to work yet. And so that's what I was doing directly before I started my private practice. Before that, I was working at what we call the regional centers in the area which works with complex medical needs and neurodivergent kiddos. So
it was a great foundation for what you're doing now.
Yes. And I actually started private practice because I had a friend that was doing online therapy, and I thought I could only do it through those two companies. And she was like, well, why don't you just do it on your own? And so that's what started me thinking about moving into private practice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So once you made the decision to ultimately start your practice, what was that journey like for you?
Well, it was kind of a rocky one. So, I guess because I kind of had this idea in my head that I'd been doing online therapy for probably 2 years at this point, but for closer to 4 years at this point. But I had this idea in my head that I had to have a physical office in order to do private practice. So I sublet an office for 2 nights a week, and got onto an insurance panel and started seeing clients in person and then online during other times during the week. And so I started in my office on February 1st, 2020. And then, the world shut down a month and a half later. And so
that's crazy timing.
Yeah. So I literally went through all the effort to get an office and get that all figured out. And then the world shut down, and I was back to private practice, back to online therapy. Mm-hmm. So now my practice is fully online, and because I think that's kind of where I'm meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so you had a very clear niche right at the outset. And do you find that was really helpful in terms of marketing and filling a caseload? Or do you find it took a lot more work to get you going and full?
So honestly, I didn't know about niches until after I started about the same time I opened my private practice. I was taking Laura Long's Badass Therapy course, and I didn't know anything about niches until her course. So I started out as a generalist, even though I had this very clear niche and this very clear like experience that I'd already spent 15 years doing. But I, had all of these ideas of what it meant to be a private practice practitioner in my head. And part of that was seeing everybody. So I started out as a generalist. I had a couple, like through A, talking with Laura Long, and B, having a couple of experiences where it was like, I do a lot better work with the people that are my best fit clients. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to niche down. Like the people that I work with, the people that I have the most experience with are neurodivergent parents and complex medical needs parents. And actually, as time has gone on, like I still do see, both mothers and fathers. I still do see parents of kids with Down syndrome, parents, complex medical needs parents as well. But I've even niched down even further to like all of my marketing is around neurodivergent mothers, because that's my ideal. And I know that, if people come to my website and they see like the feelings that I'm talking about, even though they see neurodivergent mothers, if they're a parent of a father of a neurodivergent child, like they often will still come to me because I understand the experience. I'm just mostly work with mothers. So, but those are often the people that are seeking my help the most as well.
Okay. So there were two things you mentioned there that I wanted to ask about. The first is when you had said that you had this idea that in private practice you had to see everyone. Where did that come from?
I think it came from what I had seen. Maybe you look at the media, and that's kind of what the media portrays us therapists as people that can help everybody. And like anyone you see, like, I don't know, that for some reason the therapist on The Sopranos is the one that I did not finish that show, but the therapist on The Sopranos like was a generalist, like she saw everybody. And it seems like that's the way the media portrays therapists, and that's the way that's the idea I had in my head going into being a therapist. And there were a lot of little things like that, like the being in person and, working with everybody. And then there was the insurance piece too. Like I just assumed that the only way to do it was to take insurance. So
I can definitely understand that. And I feel like for me, the similar message, but it almost manifested in a different way, where once I was sitting with the client, they came to me, we were in session. I felt the weight of that responsibility on my shoulders to be able to handle absolutely everything that came up. Even if I had specified my ideal client, there are obviously still things that are going to come up for everyone. And that's a heavy weight sometimes. So similar messaging for sure. And then you had mentioned that there were some experiences where there were clients, I'm sure with the best of intentions, that weren't ultimately the right fit. So I can see somebody listening, relating to that a lot. How did you ultimately figure out that they weren't? How did you handle it? And then when you made that transition and had those ideal clients, that difference.
So I think part of it was I had a couple of experiences with clients that were definitely not a good fit for me. And they ended up being clients that, after 5 or 6 weeks, where the clients that I see would be like, we would be connecting really well, and they would be starting to get the courage to make some changes in their lives. Like these clients were not making changes, and we also didn't feel much connection. And it became very clear that they were clients that I needed to refer out. And I learned a lot about myself that way. I learned that I definitely anger management is not my thing. That is the last thing I need to be working with. And I know that now. And so if I come across something other than like the stress and overwhelm, like the anger that can come from that in parenting. If I come across something other than that, I refer out.
I really appreciate you saying that because this comes up in my group practice all the time where I will
Mm-hmm.
be meeting with a clinician and they can sometimes take it so personal when a client is not progressing
Yeah.
or they're not feeling that connection. And it's so
Mm-hmm.
helpful to hear that it's not always necessarily that it's anything the clinician is doing, that it
Yeah.
really can't just
Yep.
be that match. It is okay
Mm-hmm.
to have that identified client that you do your best work with. There are plenty of therapists out there, and even though it can be challenging to connect the right client with the right clinician, it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, that's one of the things that I really enjoy about the copywriting business that I have is that part of my job as a copywriter is to help your ideal client like feel connected to you and want to come and see you. And if you're a generalist, you're writing your copy to nobody. Like you're trying to reach everybody, but really you're reaching nobody. And so I really love helping people like figure out who their ideal client is because I
Mhm.
know that there are so many therapists out there who aren't claiming that. And because
Yes.
they're not claiming that, they're not doing the best work and the job is harder for them
Mhm.
and more stressful for them. And they're probably being hard on themselves and taking things personally, like you were just talking about, because they're not working with their ideal clients.
Well, I love that this has been the transition for you because I initially heard you describe how clearly you described your ideal client so well that
Mm-hmm.
even dads could relate,
Yeah.
or parents who had children with complex medical needs could relate. And so you
Mm-hmm.
were really speaking to them. And so it broadens the scope a little bit, but you are
Yeah.
getting to your target population. And I'm also thinking how for these clinicians that are, let's say, Psychology Today, I'm thinking of a podcast episode I just listened to where somebody was kind of knocking profiles that are so general, use a lot of the same
Mm-hmm.
lingo, it's a lot of repetition, and
Yeah.
it's really not very specific. And so it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like you've just taken that and ran with it. So
Yeah.
tell me more about what kind of drives this passion in you to have this whole separate business.
Yeah. Well, part of it was after the pandemic, like what happened was it was so hard. Like it took such a leap for me to take on private practice. But
Hmm.
then because we hit the pandemic, like I panicked and took on too much and I burnt myself out. And so now I'm back to like figuring out how to have balance in my life and
Yes.
balance with my work.
Right.
And one of those things is finding something else to do that allows me to use some of my skills, but
Hmm.
also gives me a space where I'm not sitting in the room with people all day, every day. And
Yes.
so this is what happened. This is where the copywriting business started. I actually hated writing my own copy. It was a nightmare for me. I
Ooh.
have I spent probably 3 years writing the copy for my personal private practice website. And when I was gonna do the copywriting, I was like, I'm gonna only write blogs for people because I've really enjoyed writing blogs, and that's what
Mhm.
I'm gonna like niche in my copywriting business as writing blogs.
Okay.
And everybody that I talked to was like, "Oh, can you write an about me page? Could you do this? Could you do that?" And I was like, I don't know. And finally, I agreed to do it. And I agreed to write an about me page for one of my friends. And when I sat down to actually write it, it was so much fun because it's like writing for myself, like selling myself.
Mhm.
Now, I don't want to do it.
Mhm.
It's too hard. But selling a therapist who I've spent enough time with, and this is
Yeah.
part of the business that I run, is I spend enough time with you to get to know you, to get your strengths, your weaknesses, what you do
Mhm.
in the room, who you are. And then being able to like sell that and like not like sell it, but like tell the world who you are. And then
Mhm.
your ideal clients, those people that you do the absolute best work with, can then find you. And then like they get the help they need.
Yeah.
you get to do the work that you love and that you're passionate about and feel good about. And like everybody's happy. And it's like, so I'm still helping the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just doing it in a little bit of a different way.
Well, I hear the
So,
passion coming from you as you describe it, and I'm sure you're so grateful to that person who did push you, because
yeah,
otherwise you may never have known that this was something that you inherently were so good at. You just had to shift
yeah,
your focus to outside of yourself.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
The external focus. So what does the process look like? If somebody is seeking this out, you said that
Mhm.
you obviously want to know enough about them so that
Yeah.
you can summarize that in a way that speaks to the right person. So what does that part
Mhm.
of the process look like?
So I have you fill out a little bit of paperwork to start off with.
Yeah.
If you can't fill out the paperwork at the time, that's fine. I just, as much detail as you can, but it's not the end of the world if you can't. And then I have an hour meeting with you. And I call this meeting the ideal client clarity session.
Ooh.
And so we spend that time really figuring out like who your ideal client is. And the thing is that it might be like you might have 3 like micro niches or
Okay.
something along those lines. Like I worked with someone who did parent coaching, who did like worked with parents through an attachment style,
Mm-hmm.
and then worked with some clients who were like had kind of anxious avoidant relationship styles in their like intimate relationships.
Okay.
And so you would think that all 3 of those are so different, but when we really started talking about it, there was a general feeling that this person like exhibited in the world, even though they were coming in for 3 different reasons. And
Mm.
so the secret was for like the homepage, at least, was to write the copy to that general feeling that they had in common. And then the service pages were directly to each of those specific micro niches.
So you found the
So
common thread.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
That's
that was really
incredible.
fun. Like, so that's the first part of the process. We talk about your niche,
Mm-hmm.
your ideal client, like what they look like, who they are, the
Yeah.
feelings that they're having when they come in, and what they're looking for, you know, during therapy and what they want things to look like when they leave therapy. And then I also will sit and talk about like who you are in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And not just the like, I'm a trusting, supportive presence person. Like, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, are you someone that gives homework? Are you directive? Are you going
Mm-hmm.
to, are you going to help them to really find their strengths and accept themselves? Like,
Yeah.
what is your style as a therapist? What does it feel like to be in the room with you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you swear? Are you a little bit proper? Things like that. So that
Right.
then I can help the client through the copy figure out who you are in the room and if you're a good fit. So, and then that way,
Yes.
like your people are going to find you
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to be happy and excited to work with you, and you're not going to have these experiences that I had trying to work as a generalist where
Right.
I was working with people I shouldn't and feeling bad about myself as a therapist, cuz like
Mm-hmm.
we all do our best work when we work with the people that are meant for us to work with.
There you go. You just brought it full circle.
Yeah.
So, as far as the piece where you are helping someone to really capture what it's like to work with them, I
Mhm.
love how what you're really speaking to is what we truly remember in relationships is how somebody
Yeah.
makes us feel. And it can be
Mhm.
so challenging to describe that, but you found a way to do it. And
Yeah.
even with people, I'm assuming that you didn't know prior to doing this work with
Yeah.
them. Have you
Yeah.
found that to be interesting? You were saying one of the first people was someone obviously that you knew really well, a
Mhm.
little bit
Yeah.
different process.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
someone that you had never met before, are you finding that
Mhm.
having them answer those questions and that 1 hour meeting is producing enough information
Yeah.
to capture that?
Yeah, I'm finding that that's been enough to get enough information that I can write a really good website for somebody that like really, because it's not just the words that they say, but it's like their body language while they're talking to me about it. It's so I like the meeting that we have, I record it and I watch it later and I listen to it. So I don't take any notes while I'm there. I watch and I pay attention to your body language. I pay attention to the words that you use. And like, so I can kind of get a feeling for who you are while we're talking. And then I can kind of show that off for you in your copy.
So not that someone who isn't a therapist could not do this well, but wow, do your skills as a therapist really come in handy in this work?
Yeah.
Because in order to get someone to share what they need to share, they have to feel comfortable with you and like you are genuine and that you are someone that they can really be their authentic self with.
Yes. Yeah, it definitely uses my therapeutic skills. And then I think also like the ability to like put yourself into other people's shoes and other people's feelings like really makes a difference when I'm writing the copy as well, because not only like having been through the conversation with the person during that session, like I can really get to know them enough to know like what I need to write. Like I've written at this point, I've written three anxiety treatment pages for 3 different therapists, and they've all been completely different pages because they're completely different therapists.
Right.
And so like I lost my train of thought, but that's like
but I think it really speaks to how you're capturing their essence. So even though they're treating similar types of clients, it's going to look very different.
Yeah. And the clients that are going to be the best fit for them are not going to be the best fit for the other therapist. True. And so like it's being able to show the difference between the 3 of them. And I didn't write them at the same time, so I wasn't like purposely trying to contrast them. Right. But like that's what I'm doing is I'm not just writing an anxiety treatment page. I'm writing an anxiety page that describes how this particular therapist works with these particular clients. And it's been a lot of fun. Like I really, it makes me really excited because it's like every time I leave these sessions, like I would say so far, every single therapist, I leave that session and I'm like, your clients are so lucky to have you. Like the world is so lucky to have these great therapists. So it's really fun. I'm loving it.
It's similar for what you're describing for me when I hire someone new or have an intern. It just reminds me of why I got into this in the first place. I feel like it's such a grounding, gratitude, like how incredible to be able to walk out of that. And I'm sure you're also reminding them ultimately, once you write what you write and they get to review it, I'm sure it's having the same impact for them of this reminder of the good work that's been done, that will be done, why they're doing this in the first place. So what an incredible role you have. And it's also nice because it's brief. You do your thing, you rock it, and then you get to move on. And you can still be a point person down the line. So the blog posting, how does that work?
So whether I do the website copy for you or not, I still do an ideal client clarity session. Just because I want to know who I'm writing to. Yeah. Period. But then the blog writing, the minimum should be 2 a month for SEO purposes. Okay. I've had a couple of people choose 1 just because of affordability. And you can, like, I have one particular blog post on my website that has garnered like so much traffic. It was just one, I don't know what it was that I did, but it's just so, 2 is best, but 1 can be helpful as well.
Okay.
So, but I suggest 2 at the very least 2. And then what we do is we have the ideal client clarity session, and then I send you a Google document, and
Mhm.
we have an ongoing list of ideas for blog articles. And then I pick one every month or every 2 weeks, and I write that up for the person. I send it to them for tone and like voice editing so that they can look and be like, yeah, I would say that. No, I wouldn't say that. And then I send it, I have a professional editor so that I make those changes. I send it to a professional editor. They do that editing. And then I go through and make any more changes that I think need to be made, and then send it to the client, and the client posts it up on their website.
So how are you finding marketing for all of this in contrast to your private practice?
So far, and I think it's probably the marketing that I've already done for my private practice has made this easier. But so far it's been relatively easy. It has not, like, the marketing for my private practice, probably because it was new, felt like I was pulling teeth constantly. And so far this has not felt that way. And I think, some therapists like to write, but they don't have time. Some therapists like to write, but they don't. The ability to write in a way that connects with their audience is a hard thing to do.
Sure.
Some therapists, like me with my website, like, they like to write, but they don't want to write about themselves. And then there's the other therapists that just hate writing and don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
And so it's been pretty easy. Like, I will be talking about what I do at, like, a networking meeting that I do for my private practice. And someone will come up to me and be like, oh, can you do this for me? Or like, how do you do this? What's this process like? And so it's been relatively easy. I have been, like, because I took a bunch of classes and some, like, extra coaching and things like that for this business. I have a lot of knowledge at this point to share with people. And so I'll kind of get in, like, if I see someone asking a question in a Facebook group, like, I want to be helpful to people. Like, that's my main goal. And I'll, be as helpful as I can. And I've found that people have been interested in the copywriting business from there, which,
I feel like that builds credibility.
Yeah. And that didn't seem to, like, that wasn't something that happens with my private practice. Like, and I think part of it is the sensitive nature of the things that I work with in private practice. And I think therapists are like, we seek help in community, and we have a lot of community online. So I think that's part of it. But it's been interesting. Like, this business so far has been very, very easy for me in comparison to the private practice.
I'm really happy to hear that. Well, I'm thinking how incredible it feels if you're not able to serve a particular client and you identify someone in your network that would be a really good fit. I can see it being a similar feeling where, every clinician out there that you network with, it's so good to have someone that does each particular thing, because there are needs across the board. So for people to get to know you and be able to point in your direction, and this is what you do and you love and you're great at it. I'm thinking even at the retreat, I mean, you were the only one where that was your focus while we were there in terms of what you were working on. So that in and of itself is already a network that then just expands from there. So that's wonderful. Well, I have really enjoyed hearing about this journey, and I'm sure that the passion that I am hearing coming from you is going to be conveyed to the audience. So if anybody is interested, what is the best way for them to find you?
So my copyright website is www.therapycopy.com, and it's Therapy Copy by Danielle. And there's a contact me button on there. And then there's also, if you are just exploring writing blogs, there's a a freebie on there for like 7 essential tools for writing a blog. Or I think it may be 7 essential tips for blog writing on there. So that's on there as well.
Oh, awesome. Well, I will make sure to include all of this. I'm really grateful that we connected. I'm so happy to hear that you have found this niche and this kind of second business that really speaks to these skills that you inherently had, and now they just get to shine.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Thank
you
you
so much. If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Nepini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.